I would like to talk just about 3 or 4 things today to kind of bring you up to date on the issues that we have been focusing on, other than the ones that you see on the C-SPAN 2 on the Senate floor, or the political fireworks that have been producing very little results up here, quite frankly. When I leave the Senate in a year and 3 months, I want to be able to say, and I think that I can, that I did my best to bring good governance to this body at a time of great debate and sometimes confusion, that we focused on the issues that I ran on, and that we provided the type of good governance that we need in this environment in order to actually get things done. One of the things that we've worked very hard on, I think many of you have heard this before, is the notion of how to fix a broken criminal justice system in this country. It was not an issue that I got a lot of enthusiastic advice to speak about 5 years ago, but I think we can honestly say that we brought this issue out of the shadows and fully into the public debate in this country. I came to the Senate determined that we were going to work on it. We held 2 years of hearings on all the aspects of this system. And if just the 2 beams that this rides on are, number one, we have far more people incarcerated in this country than any other country that measures its criminal population as a percentage and in terms of numbers. When I was working as a journalist on this issue many years ago, looking at the Japanese criminal justice system, they had 40,000 people in jail. We had about 600,000 people in jail with twice their population. We now have 2.38 million people in prison, about 7 million inside the system, and it affects every single person in this country. We are, on the one hand, imprisoning more people, having them in the system. We don't have reentry programs for them, and on the other, you can ask almost any American and they will tell you, poll after poll, that they feel less safe in the neighborhoods than they did a year ago. It's an economic issue in terms of the number of people that are in the system and the stigma that happens after you've been incarcerated. It's also a security issue for everyone in the country. From our office, we've driven this piece of legislation, met with more than 100 different interest groups across the country, and have now received the endorsements across the philosophical spectrum from organizations that are involved, from the National Sheriff's Association, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, all the way over to the ACLU and the Sentencing Project. Across the board, people have come together to support this, and most importantly, people are talking about it now across the philosophical spectrum. A second thing that we have been able to do during my time in the Senate is to take advantage of the many years that I have spent interacting with Northeast and Southeast Asia, wearing a number of different hats before I came to the Senate. We have become, I believe, the principal office in the United States Congress with respect to reinvigorating our relationship in Northeast and Southeast Asia. This has enormous security implications for the country, and it also has an enormous economic upside when we consider trade relations in that vital part of the world. I have traveled to these countries. I've visited every country on the Southeast Asian mainland since I've been in the Senate. I've been able to meet with heads of state, ministers of defense, economic ministers. Been to Korea last year and this year. Last year when I returned, I was able to put a letter to the president signed by 9 other Democrat senators in order to encourage the president to move forward on a Korea Free Trade Agreement, which I think we're going to get done very soon and will have, in my view, enormous positive implications for the country. I have worked with the Japanese in great detail to redesign our basing policy on Okinawa, something that I began working on actually in 1974 when I was a military planner during the time that I was also attending law school. I came forward with a proposal in April, which now has been agreed to by Senator Levin and Senator McCain, the chairman and ranking Republican on the Senate Armed Services Committee, so that we might move this issue that has stagnated for 15 years and threatens the domestic politics of Japan, as well as our relationships in that part of the world. I spent a lot of time with the ASEAN countries. I may have mentioned this last year. The trade implications with ASEAN and the United States are enormous. The upside is enormous. There's 650 million people in the ASEAN countries. Their trade is growing. And when we see the future down in the Norfolk area, when the Panama Canal renovation is complete and the Central America corridor gets built out from Norfolk, we're going to see a tremendous amount of increased trade coming from that part of the world. Just quickly, on this economic situation that we're facing right now, I'd like to just lay out 3 points. One, I think we all need to remember, despite all of the darts that are being thrown back and forth, this was not a Barack Obama problem. It was not a George W. Bush problem. It was a national problem. The growth of the national debt doubled during the Bush years. A big part of this was the way that the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were funded. We can look at budget deficit issues, but the national debt was where a lot of that money went instead of into budget deficits. We put through so many supplemental appropriations, so-called emergency appropriations, that were outside the normal budget debates but went right into the national debt. And the other issue, obviously, was the collapse of our financial system, our regulators, the lack of regulation, and what happened in the financial sector. As we move forward, and I'm trying to hit my 10-minute mark here, I've laid down a couple of markers. One is, whatever the solution that comes forward is, I will not vote to increase taxes on ordinary earned income. I said that when I ran. I still believe it, that if somebody goes out and makes a living, if you went to medical school and you end up with 11 years in school and took out all these loans and you're making whatever you're making, $600,000 a year, if that is ordinary earned income, we don't need to be increasing the taxes on ordinary earned income. There are other ways to obtain the revenues that we would need in order to solve the problem. We can and we will work to reduce expenditures in terms of government budget. Second point, we need more capital in this country. We can't get jobs without growing the economy. We can't grow the economy without more capital investment. And there's basically 3 reasons. I think this room knows it as well as anywhere. There's basically 3 reasons why there's not a lot of capital investment right now. It's not that the capital isn't out there. We all know it is out there. The first is people are nervous. And I think what happened with the debate over the national debt made people even more nervous. I think I made a speech on the Senate floor where I said that the final point that I made was you don't save the American economy by threatening to destroy it, which was essentially the bet that was being placed before us during that time. The second reason we're not getting capital is there are a lot of people who are holding back for political reasons. There's some calculations that are being made. The third is we have to find ways to entice capital to come back in, from my perspective. And one of the areas I think Democrats need to be a lot more open-minded about is the money that is now overseas. That American corporations are resisting bringing back in because they don't have to pay taxes on the profits until they bring it back into the United States. I think that we should find a way to entice the capital to come back in if it is being put into investment and capitalization of the American economy. And the The final point I would say about that is I believe that the United States can invigorate its manufacturing sector. We tend to think in the United States, because of what's happened with the third world economies, particularly China, that we can't compete in manufacturing anymore because their labor prices are so low. But for me, the model to look at, not necessarily to follow, but to look at, is the German model. A lot of people don't realize that the country with the highest balance of trade in the world is not China, it's Germany, with 86 million people. And they have done it by building mid-sized manufacturing corporations that heavily export, rely on quality, they pay their workers well, and they service the exports that they put out. That's a great model for us to look at. The Germans have high wages. They've had national health care since the 1870s. They have great relations with their unions, which is not always a happy word in Virginia politics. But they have a model that has taken care of their people and brought them enormous economic success, and it is based on manufacturing. So those are the data points that I look at when I'm moving forward for my one vote here in the United States Senate, and we will do what we can to work on these other issues as well. Thank you very much for your time today, and I hope I got out of here in a reasonable amount of time. Thank you.